accordance with the requirements of the open meetings law, please be advised that this meeting is being audio video recorded. The agenda lists all of the topics which may be discussed in the meeting and those that are reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. Please address all comments to the chair. That would be me. This meeting of the Conservation Commission will be held by Zoom at the link provided in this notice. And for anybody that's on watching our live streaming service, the meeting ID is 839-3048-0895. That's also available on our Lunenburg.gov website. I typically go to the town calendar and download it there. And I would encourage anybody who wants to do so to go there because the link is clickable. And all you have to do is type in the passcode, which is 860872. Okay, we will start with a roll call vote. Bob Pease.
I'm present.
Rich Tremblay.
Present.
Rich Birsch.
Present.
Jeff Viviano.
Present.
Mike LaRouche.
Present.
Chris St. Germain.
Present.
Okay, full house tonight. Excellent. Okay, we will start out with announcements. Are there any announcements by members of the commission?
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
did have a note for the agenda. The meeting ID is incorrect again.
Is it really?
The 0 and the 3 have been swapped as they were in the last meeting. It's the proper meeting code in the link, but it's just the improper ID. So if you just clicked on the link, it works. But if you go to type it in, it is the 3 and a 0 are backwards. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Rich. And for anybody who's live streaming that may have heard that, I'll just reread the meeting ID to kind of to what Rich was just pointing out. The meeting ID is 839-0348-0895. Hopefully people are able to finesse around that, and I will bring that up again to Ashley. Okay, any other announcements by members of the commission? Okay, for members of the public, if you have any announcements, comments are to be limited to 3 minutes. And the subject matter needs to stay within the jurisdiction of the commission. Please address any comments to the chair. Do you have any members of the public that have announcements? Okay. I believe that the May 17 meeting minutes have been published to our share drive. I at least saw them there and read them. Has everybody had an opportunity to read those meeting minutes, and are we in a position to vote on those? Has anybody not had an opportunity?
I did not see them in the drive. I apologize if they're there and I missed them. I know I did review them. And they were about perfect and wonderful. But you know, maybe they are there and I just missed them. But I'd be curious to see if anybody else saw them and read them.
I did not either. I didn't see them.
So
Okay.
I don't think they're actually in the drive yet, Mary. I think we have to ask Ashley, or maybe I can upload them to the drive and we can. Although actually I
don't think we have permission for the drive unless you have special permission. No, I don't have permission.
Oh, that we have to address that. So, all right.
Okay. We'll,
I'm suggesting that we take it up again next week.
okay.
Next meeting rather.
We may have more to review by then, since we have somebody working diligently on getting us out of our meeting minute backlog. Okay. So without further ado, I think we'll progress to new hearings. I'm gonna be shifting between my paper copy and my virtual copy. My printer was not happy with me tonight. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, as amended in the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands and Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing on an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation by Kevin O'Brien at 390 Howard Street. It has an existing, pre-existing DEP number, 208-1304. Do we have Mr. O'Brien or his representative here on the call tonight?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm actually here filling in for Haley Ward tonight on this particular matter.
Welcome back, Matt. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about what this project is and the background on it?
Could I share my screen?
Yeah, let me fix the settings so that you're able to do that. Okay, you should be able to share now, Matt.
Can you guys see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So essentially, there was a prior ANRAD that was issued by the Conservation Commission a long time ago on this. The ANRAD had expired and was never extended or renewed. The applicant had all of the prior flagging by Charles Caron Environmental rehung on this and submitted an application to simply have the wetlands recertified again. That's basically it. I mean, there's really not much else to say. I'm assuming the commission would probably want to walk the site.
The commission has walked the site, or at least some of us have. I went out with Bob last week, and then again with Rich Tremblay over the weekend. I didn't see any flags anywhere.
Really, because I know they were rehung. So
Yeah, I didn't see any anywhere, and we walked pretty extensively around.
okay, so I mean, if you guys weren't able to see the flagging out there, then perhaps I should ask the commission to do another site walk. I'll make sure that, you know, Haley Ward has all the flags. So they went out and survey located all the flags and rehung them. So not sure if anything happened to them or not, but I can make sure that happens. The only other thing I would point out, I was provided with the prior ANRAD that was issued from the last time. And that was quite a while ago. And there was a certification on the headwaters of the Mulpus as a perennial stream.
Mhm.
The applicant is not asking for anything to do with riverfront on this one, simply just the actual wetlands themselves. Anything to do with riverfront or the boundaries of said riverfront would have to be handled under a notice of intent if there's any type of construction that winds up being proposed within 200 feet of that stream. So that is actually not part of this.
Okay. Okay, the other thing that I noticed while I was out there walking around, Matt, is I didn't see any silt fence, any straw wattles, or any similar type of erosion barriers.
Okay, I will talk to the applicant about that.
And there were a lot of significant erosion issues out there. Yeah, there's a lot
Yeah.
of erosion happening
Okay.
out there.
So it sounds like that, you know, we probably should walk the site. You guys probably need to walk the site so we can take a look at this.
Okay. Bob Pease, you have your hand raised. Floor is
I
yours.
do. I went out there with Mary and there was very significant erosion that had taken place where tons and tons of dirt had been moved, you know, from one place to another by water, you know, in some fairly deep gullies, had formed, where the water had, taken away, the dirt, so that, when I stood inside the gully, it was, up, breast height. So it was like 4 feet, deep or so. And so, at that time, we did not have a conservation administrator. And so, I reached out to, Mia McDonald, at, the, DEP, our DEP circuit rider, for advice and guidance. And, when I did that, she advised me to that, the flagging should all be rehung, so that we can double check. B, given that we do not have, while we have an interim administrator now, we have 2 interim administrators, we still do not have a full-time wetlands agent. And, she advised, that we should ask for a third-party review, of the wetlands. And, I just want to bring that to everyone's attention that, I did reach out, to the DEP because we did not have a full-time administrator. And, that was the advice, from the DEP. And, and in walking, the property, you can see, that there's been a tremendous amount of, the vegetation is gone. The topsoil's been stripped off in a lot of places and separated out so that you can see where the, there's large piles of boulders where there's been, screening operations. And you can see where there's been a lot of soil that's been transported off the site. Let's put it this way, there's soil that's missing. And I don't see it deposited on the site, so I have to assume it was transported, off the site. But that's an assumption on my part, it would need, to be verified somewhere else. But I think there's some very significant issues here, and, that's what I have to say at this time.
Well, while you were talking, I was just showing some of the photos, right? I guess I could make it bigger. And I can show full screen any of these photos, anybody wants to dial into. Here we have, Commissioner here showing the scale, right, of the erosion problems. There's just a lot of earth moving down in there that really seems to be uncontrolled altogether. Yeah, and there are piles of soil, several piles of soil that have no erosion control, and you can see the ruts coming down the sides of it as well. Yeah, here's that pond that's the headwater of the Mulpus Brook. Looking for my Saturday photos. Here are
Bob,
my Saturday photos as well.
Rich Birch has his hand up, Mayor.
Ah, Rich, yes, floor is yours, Rich.
when you were out on site, was any of the erosion into the buffers or the wetland?
Well, I'd have to go back sometime to answer that, Rich. I have to go back sometime when the wetlands were flagged. It certainly looked that way to me. There's like a berm that the applicant built along the entire western perimeter of the property. And that berm, and there's also a berm along the eastern side of the property that kind of like prevents the water from leaving the property until, it gets to a certain point. And, and if you look at the wetlands map, it shows that the western, that there's a wetlands running through the western perimeter. So, just based on that, I'd have to say, yes, that there was erosion through the wetlands. But you know, to be concrete, you know, it would have to all be, flagged, you know, so we could go out there and see exactly, you know, what was what.
Okay. And it looks like comparing the 2019 to 21 aerials that quite a bit of work was done in the last couple years out there. Was there ever a earth removal permit filed on this property? Matt, do
No.
you know?
I have no idea. Like I said, I was just basically filed the application and was filling in because they were kind of waylaid with some heavy projects. So,
Okay.
I unfortunately or unfortunately, I tend to watch, I at least read the agenda of every select board meeting. And I've been doing that ever since I became chair, more as a defensive move than anything else. I can tell you, since I became chair 3 years ago, there's not been any earth removal, permit filed up there. To the best of my knowledge, to the best of my memory, and I am an old guy with a faulty memory, but that's for what it's worth.
Okay. Well, I guess it looks like we have a little bit of research to do before moving forward with this application.
okay, so if I may,
Yes, Matt?
okay, so what I'm getting here, the points I need to discuss with them in the morning. So I was told that all flags were survey located and rehung, and you guys aren't seeing any flags. I will raise that issue. The erosion and the piles of topsoils, I will raise the issue. The erosion gullies being formed, I will raise that issue with them. I will tell them of your desire for a third-party review. I will say that if you do ask for a third-party review, that under conformance with the regulations regarding third-party reviews, if the applicant could be provided with a list of alternative third parties to do the review. And I will find out about the earth removal permit. And then we should probably, well, actually, I think it would probably behoove everybody to schedule another site walk.
Hey, Matt,
Is that
just a
about it
quick
right now?
question. Sorry about that. Just a quick question. You've stated it twice that the flags were survey located. So an engineer has gone out or has supposedly gone out on site and just put the flags back where they were at the original delineation, or a wetland scientist went out and redelineated the site where it has been several years now since it was originally delineated.
The original site was delineated by Chuck Karen, so Mr. Karen's flags were survey located by Haley Ward, who was then Whitman and Bingham. Those flags were relocated by the surveyors and rehung back in the exact spots that they were.
Okay, so there's been no review of the wetlands and any changes that could have taken place since the prior delineation many years ago.
Not that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions or, Rich Tremblay, I see your hand is up. Rich, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Matt, just one question. Do we know when they went out and hung those flags up?
It would have been over the course of the summer.
So they should have been there.
Exactly,
then
I'm not privy
this
to.
weekend. They should have been there.
Yeah, that's correct. They were hung this year. So it, based on my information timeline, I'm estimating they were hung up early summer.
Okay, because on a Saturday visit, we couldn't find any of them when we looked. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mike LaRouche, floor is yours.
Yes, Madam Chair. Matt, I'm just curious, the DEP, is this number the original number taken out on the permit, or is this a recent DEP number? And if so, were there any comments either initially or now?
So as far as initial comments, I don't know. I haven't looked that up. As far as the number that's been issued now, it's a new number because it's a new filing, because the original filing expired. When an original filing like that expires, you have to refile and get a new number. The only comment I saw on there was that because they changed the manual on the delineation, they wanted like a report submitted on what the flagging was. They did say in the comment that it wouldn't necessarily change the flagging, depending on the methodology that, you know, Chuck used, but my familiarity with Chuck's work is that he uses, the methodologies really haven't changed very, very much. It's just the way that it's been being reported. You know, some of the report sheets have now changed. They do allow for a little bit more flexibility in methods used. That's basically what they were referring to.
So those were the latest specific comments from DEP, as far as you can tell? That one
all I-
comment?
That's all I remember seeing.
Okay. Thanks, Matt. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mike. Bob, you have your hand up. Floor
I
is
do.
yours.
Madam Chair, through you, I was wondering if we could ask Matt to share his screen and show us where he saw those comments from the DEP and where they got the DEP number.
Yeah, hold on a second. Let me just pull it up.
I've got it handy, Matt, if you'd rather I shared it.
That's fine.
There we go, Bob.
So as you can see, the comments on this, the overall comments were in red delineation resubmitted of expired delineation under the prior DEP number. Here is the new DEP number. Their technical comment, it should be noted that the guidelines for wetland delineation were revised in 2023. While this does not invalidate the prior delineation resubmitted under this application, the changes, well, I'm assuming that means in delineation methodology, should be considered by the commission in its review. The applicant should submit delineation data sheets for the commission review in addition to being mapped as ACEC. Portions are subject to parcels of ORW, which may have implications for future project permitting on this site. So that last comment means that that area is part of the Squanasset ACEC. So they're not asking for confirmation. That's already been confirmed. They're just obviously making the commission aware that it's an ACEC. So once the commission comes to any conclusions on the delineation, the applicant is being also made aware that it is in an ACEC. So anything that would affect the ACEC, any thresholds that may be triggered might require a MIPA filing or at least an ENF. Portions of the subject parcel are also mapped as an ORW, which may have implications for future project permitting on the site. I'm assuming that's probably because of the perennial streams on site. So that would also have to be taken into consideration if the applicant proposes any wetlands alterations in the future. If there were any wetlands alterations that he proposed under a notice of intent, it would, because it's an ORW, it would likely require a 401 water quality certification. That's what those comments mean.
Thank you. I also just wanted to say that I wanted to be sure that the commission had permission to enter the property, you know, for the site walk. And so my first step was to contact Jamie Rowe and ask him, you know, like, do we have permission to enter because if you're taking a look at the address on the project, it's 390 Howard Street. If you look at the address on the permission to enter form, it's 318 Howard Street. But, you know, depending upon where you look on the assessor's website, there's a lot of confusion there because while the whole thing has technically been subdivided, he hasn't executed the subdivision yet. And so first I called Jamie Rowe and he assured me that we had permission to enter. And then I called and left a message for Mr. O'Brien, and he called me back and he assured me that we had permission. And I just wanted to share that information with everybody. And also then Jamie Rowe also told me exactly what Matt just said, was that you know, that the survey flags, that the wetlands flags have been survey located. You know, and so I'm assuming that means exactly what Matt said it means, is, you know, that, you know, surveyors went out there and put them back exactly where they were back in 2008. You know, based on, you know, like GIS information or, and so, but I absolutely agree with, both, Mary and with, Rich Tremblay, that there were no survey flags to be, no wetlands flags to be seen anywhere. And we went through a lot of that property that was, you know, definitely showed as wetlands, you know, on the wetlands map. And the other thing is, though, I also wanted to comment on Rich Birch's point that a lot of the really heavy erosion we saw, not all of it, but some of it definitely was not inside this commission's jurisdiction. You know, it might well be under somebody else's jurisdiction, like the EPA, you know, for failure to stabilize a construction site of more than 1 acre, you know, over time. But some of that stuff we saw up there, which was, in my view, pretty egregious, you know, is definitely not, you know, in the jurisdiction of this commission, unless, you know, it takes and it's washing the dirt down into wetlands, which in my humble opinion, based on what I saw, you know, absent survey flags, is a strong possibility. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Bob. Rich Birch, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hey, I just looked back quick. The original delineation 208-0910 was submitted back in 2008. So we're looking at 15 years since the original delineation, and it doesn't sound like any new delineation is planned to take place, at least by the applicant. I would recommend that moving forward, we inform the applicant that we will need to hire a third party for review of the delineation, and once the delineation is in place, review of any erosion or other damage into the wetland buffers. There's been enough surveying of this site and overhead pictures and things like that it should be pretty easy to determine if it was prior or natural, or if it was due to their land work on the site that's taken place over the last few years. So that would be my recommendation, is to inform them of that we will need a third party for review of delineation and any activities moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Do we have questions or comments by any more by the commissioners? And if not, I'll open the floor to members of the public. Members of the public, please state your name and your address and address all questions to the chair. Eric Lottie, I see your hand raised. You have the floor.
Hi, my name's Eric Lottie. I'm at 833 Newest Townsend Road in Lunenburg. So I live at the bottom of this mess. Just the brook on the west side feeds Pearl Hill Brook. If you looked at the map that they had up earlier, you can see the stream, probably perennial, but it's been running all year this year. And it has put silt. It's probably, as the crow flies, I would say 500 to 600 yards from my pond. But it has silted my pond to the point where fish are dying. And I just really need something to be done about it. This is the third time in a year that this has happened. You know, I'm a developer, a builder, or whatever you want to call me. I've been doing this all my life, and I built the house right in the middle of those, the Arrow Estates. There's 2 houses out there. We ended up, before I could touch anything, we had to put in over a half a mile of silt fence and hay bales, and he can do this without doing anything. I just don't understand the reasoning.
Thank you, Eric. Are there any other comments by members of the public? There are a lot of people on here, so I'm trying to look. Not see anybody else with their hand raised.
By the way, if you wish to raise your hand, you go to the bottom of the screen to the reaction section and you click there on raise hand.
Thank you, Bob. We do this so much, sometimes I forget that not everybody does it so much. So it's good to have those kinds of instructions for folks. And I'm not seeing anything. Okay, so I think I'm looking for a motion to continue, is I think where we are with this. And
Yes, Madam Chair, I would
Yeah.
request continuance to the next regular meeting.
next regular meeting is November 1st.
And I'll be working to address these questions and probably try to set up another site walk as well, if the commission is willing to go.
I think that sounds like a good idea. Matt, thank you. So is anybody, Rich Birch, you have your hand up?
Madam Chair, given the last speaker talking about possible erosion into the brook, is this something we should be reviewing a little bit more in an expedited nature? If we are dealing with active erosion that needs to be addressed and stabilized now? Where I haven't been on site, but it sounds like a few of the other members have. Do we have active erosion that is threatening the wetlands currently?
My observation was that there is down in that down the western slope. There is a berm, as Bob said, that's below kind of or parallel to the lower kind of roadway that's been cut through the trees and through the proposed development area. That berm has failed in 1 or 2 areas, and does, in my opinion, look like it's eroding, and a lot of movement of earth through there. So yeah, I think that's a good suggestion, Rich. Eric Lottie has his.
We should
Go ahead.
add that they deal with that erosion prior to coming back and a site visit, so we can examine it when we're out there. Have you been on site, Matt? Through you, Madam Chair?
I haven't been out to that site since prior to God turning all the faucets on.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Rich. Eric, you had your hand up again.
Yeah, I just, if the commission wants to come out and walk, I can show them my property and what it's done. It's actually turned the water from almost crystal clear to a murky color. And also the neighbor, I'll get permission from him, and you can walk on his property as well and see the piles of silt. The piles of silt are 2 to 3 feet deep, way down right on the side of Howard Street.
Okay, I think we'll take you up on that. We'll have to get organized on when we can go out and do that. But thank you, Eric.
Okay.
Bob, you had your hand up. You have the floor.
Well, I would just say that I absolutely agree with Rich that we shouldn't be waiting, to address the siltation issues that we see there. On the one hand, but I just also wanted to comment. Right now, it's kind of tough to go out there as a commission when you're not sure where the wetlands were or are. you know, because there's running water all over the place. There's gullies all over the place. And to me, where the wetlands were back in 2008 is probably fairly, oh, I don't know if it's irrelevant or not. I don't know enough about it. But it seems to me like we really do need the wetlands delineated, you know, in some shape or fashion, sooner rather than later. You know, and the engineer seems to be under the impression it's already happened, you know, and that engineer, you know, I'm sure places great value in his own reputation, you know, and veracity. So I'm not quite sure what the disconnect is here, but I do think we should do something about this sooner rather than later. And I think it's important to take Mr. Lottie up on his offer to view his property and also the property of the abutters, you know, which is immediately downstream of the western border of the property. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Bob. I'm inclined to think that the erosion needs to have priority, particularly if we walk out there and confirm the erosion is happening downhill, down gradient from this property and into Pearl Brook and to Eric Lottie's pond. And I don't think the delineation of the wetland in any way inhibits us from looking at that potential violation because the silt is coming from somewhere that's getting into Eric's pond. So I think that can be taken as a one-off, right, to address with urgency while we, you know, on a more programmatic type of process, look at all of these other concerns on the project. Eric, did you raise your hand again, or is it still up and I just didn't put it down for you?
It's still up, but I didn't put it back up.
Okay. I can fix that for you. Okay, thank you. Okay, I think so I think what I'm looking for on the first case is I'm looking for a motion to continue. And then I think with regard to the erosion priority, I think we definitely want to get one of our administrators out there to review the property and see if there's a potential violation that might need urgent remedy. Does anybody want to make a motion on the continuation?
I'll make a move that we continue to our next meeting, which I believe is November 1st.
That is correct, Bob.
Second, Rich Birch.
So we'll go for a roll call vote. Rich Tremblay,
Aye.
Rich Birch,
Aye.
Jeff Viviano,
Aye.
Mike LaRouche,
Aye.
Chris St. Germain,
Aye.
Bob Pease,
Aye.
and I for myself.
And
Well, that's
Madam Chair, did we
yes.
want to move this over to the building official, just given our concerns of a possible earth removal being done without a permit?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Mary, I'd be happy to write to the building official on behalf of the commission because I know you're very busy.
Bob, I really appreciate that. Thank you. And then I think we'll talk to our office and our administration staff about getting out there and looking at the erosion, and hopefully we can do it when we can have some conservation commissioners in attendance. the erosion specific to moving downhill into Pearl Brook and to Eric Lottie's property. Bob, did you have your hand up?
I did. I would, through you, Madam Chair, Matt, do you want us to, do you think we should put the time and effort right now into trying to develop a list of third-party reviewers? You know, the town has hired a consultant to fill in for Adam Burney. And so I probably would have to go through the consultant, you know, to develop that list.
Yes, that's fine. If you want to work with the planning board consultant and come up with a list, yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary.
Bob, thank you for taking that on. I appreciate it. Okay, I think that closes the hearing for 390 Howard Street for tonight. We'll move on to our next hearing.
Good night,
Pursuant
guys.
to- Good night. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended in the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands Protection and Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing on a notice of intent by Joanne Hamburg for the installation of a new septic system at 201 Fire Road 16. Do we have Ms. Hamburg or her representative here on the call tonight?
Chris McKenzie here from Dillis and Roy to represent on this project.
Thank you, Chris. Do you want to share some project plans and take the commission through a review of what the project is here?
Sure, if I could share my screen, that would be great.
Yes, please.
All right, can everyone see that? All right.
The application and the company.
Yes.
Well, this is an existing. This is an existing.
Chair, sorry. Do you have a chance to, I guess, mute Lottie? I think he's got
I
a lot of
did.
background noise. Okay, thanks.
I did.
This is an existing property. Existing house number 201 is located here. This is off of the end, near the end of Fire Road 16. If you're familiar with that area, right near the Shirley line, which is this line here. And the railroad tracks, the commuter rail runs right through on this side of the property. So it's kind of isolated by itself. There is another house located just to the northwest over here. The proposal is for a new septic system to be installed up in this area outside of the buffer zone. However, as part of the work of this new septic system, we're going to install a new septic tank and pump chamber in this location here with a new building sewer coming out of the house. We're also proposing a new well located in this area over here. All of those items are within the 100-foot wetland buffer zone. So we've shown an erosion control barrier around the area to encapsulate the work area and prevent any erosion from going down to the lake, which is down in this direction here. This is the cove end of the lake, right in that very southeast corner of the property. So the work's going to involve really taking out whatever existing system might be in this area, installing a new tank and pump chamber and the piping and a trench going up to the leach area. Some removal of a mound, if you will, of soil here. It's primarily that this is the only location we can put the well and meet all the required offsets. So we had to put it in this location, and in order for a well machine to get there, they're going to have to knock that hill down so that the truck can get in there. It's just too steep and too pointy at the top for them to actually work in that area without excavating that out. And like I said, erosion control around the whole area. So it's really a minimal amount of work. If it wasn't for the removal of the mounded area here, there would be almost no real site work involved other than installing the tank and pump chamber.
Where is the lake on this drawing?
The lake is over here. The edge of the lake is right near this 298 contour in this area here. It's kind of almost off the sheet here. Probably should open up the viewport a little further to get the edge of it. But the the lake makes a pretty sharp corner here. If I can, I'll try to zoom in on the map here. We are right in this very corner right here. So a very southeast corner of the property. It's the very last property there, and you can see the railroad tracks come by right here. So we're right in the very corner of the lake right there.
And so the two lines that you had shown in yellow on your plan,
Mm-hmm.
those were the 50 and the 100?
That's correct. Yeah, that the yellow is the 100-foot, and the 50-foot is the orange. No work is proposed in the 50 between the 0 and 50-foot, except for some grading in this area, like I said, to level this area out. But we did have to, get into there just a little bit, but just in order to be able to level this hill down, so that a well truck can get in there and put the well in.
Okay. Okay, are there any trees or understory bushes or whatnot that have to be taken down to place that well?
Yeah, there are a couple of trees that are basically near the top of this mound that would have to come down. I'm not totally sure of the size. The owners are here attending the meeting. They could certainly clarify any number or dimension of trees that might be located there.
Madam Chair, hi, it's Butch McGurn. How are you tonight?
Hi.
So as he's indicating, there will be trees to come down on that mound. And I would guess, just a rough guess, maybe 8, well over 2 inches, and 2 inch up to probably even 12.
Oh, that's not very
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And there didn't seem to be any designation on the drawing about the trees that are impacted within the buffer zone?
No, unfortunately, at the time that the topography was shot out here, no one was aware that that mound was going to have to be removed in order to put a well in that location. So we didn't obtain the tree locations. And again, we don't typically locate 2 to 10-inch tree. Anything under about 10 inches is something you wouldn't typically locate unless you specifically needed to.
Okay, thank you for that. Rich Bursch, you have your hand up. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris, not that I'm questioning your delineation, but if I go 50 feet from the 50-foot boundary, I'm at like the 303 contour line. So I'm having a hard time with you telling us that the lake's at 298.
Well,
That's
the
going to be
offset,
that's going to be way outside of 50 feet from where you've got the 50-foot and the 100-foot lines.
right.
Is there any way you can give us a plan that actually shows us the edge of the wetland and mark the 50 and 100?
Yeah, let me see if I can draft something up here real quick while I'm talking to you. So this right here, this area, oops, sorry, to there, to here, to here, to there, to there. So that area that I just highlighted, this line here, is where that 50-foot buffer and 100-foot buffer have been measured from. So they're not measured from down here. They're measured from this line here, which was the historical edge of the property based on the survey plans that were completed. I believe that's actually the edge of the wetland. It's very marshy down in that area. So I think the lake, the water is back here, but the edge of the wetland is up along this line here. And that's why this buffer zone is where it is. You can see.
Now,
it.
your well has to be a minimum of 50 feet from the edge of wet?
Yes.
And you are not able to show us a delineated wetland buffer or a wetland boundary?
Yeah, again, the wetland boundary is right along here. I think it's it's probably more of a high water line kind of situation. But that's where the wetland line is. Again, the lake is further out,
No.
but it's all a marshy area in between, which obviously it would be considered a resource area.
Yeah, I guess myself, I would like to see a plan updated that actually shows the edge of the lake and the edge of the wetland, and then so we can discern the actual location of the 50 and 100.
Understood.
Rich, thank you for that. That's actually something that was confusing me a little bit about the drawing, is that
Yeah.
it seemed like that solid line that he last highlighted would have been the edge of the lake or the high water mark or the
But
50-year
it's-
flood mark,
It's
but
not,
then,
it's the boundary that
yeah,
is shown. It's not a, it's a political line. It's not an environmental boundary line.
Madam Chair.
I myself would like to see it delineated on the plan. I have no problem with
Thank
the
you, Rich.
project. You're kind of limited in where you can put it, but you know, we're kind of guessing here that where the 50-foot line is, if the well is within the boundary, outside the boundary.
Thank you, Rich. Richard
Thank you,
Tremblay.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris, a couple of questions. Does this map or drawing show us where the existing septic system is?
It does not. I'm not sure exactly what's out there, but I think it's a cesspool or something just in this area. I don't think there's any known exact location of the existing system.
Okay, what is your plan? Is that going to be removed?
It will be removed if it's interfering with the new system, and obviously, the Board of Health requires any tanks to be properly decommissioned, crushed and filled with sand and that kind of thing, for safety purposes mostly.
And my last question, around the well, when you're removing all that fill so that we can get a truck in there to put in the new well, or what happens to that fill?
It could be used. It's probably all mostly sand. So certainly they'll be needing some sand around the proposed system area to meet Title V requirements, which that sand probably does. So certainly some of it could be used for there. I don't know what the plans are for any of the rest of it. It's really not that much there. A few truckloads, maybe 2 or 3.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Do we have any other questions or comments from members of the commission? Not seeing any hands. Butch and Joanne, you have your hand up?
I do, Madam Chair. Just to point out, the level of the lake is in fact that heavy dark line that was highlighted. That is in fact the edge of property because it's a retaining wall, an old concrete retaining wall. That delineates the property from the lake. So that the lake is level at that retaining wall right now is at 2 feet.
Thank you for that.
And then to answer Rich Tremblay's question, there is an old abandoned system. There's probably about a 50-gallon barrel that's buried in there. And it does have an elevation out to an old sand trench. And it's roughly located at the number 1.
Thank you, Butch.
So that has the barrel over it. Is that what we saw this weekend? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. And thank you for clarifying where the edge of the lake was, but then that really begs the question of why there's still gradient lines below the level of the lake. That makes no sense to me.
Well, I can honestly say lake level on the entire town assessors map is at 300 and the dam spill is at 301. We know that from the property that we all did together
Yeah.
2 years ago.
So apparently the lake somehow has a void here in your area, according to the drawing. Anyway, thank you for that clarification. Bob Pease, you have your hand raised.
I did. I had the same question you did. It's like, you know, why are there still contour lines, you know, below that, you know, if that's the edge of the lake? You know, why are the contour lines before that? And I'd love to hear from the surveyor that produced the map. Because it makes no sense. And, you know, and that line that was just highlighted doesn't follow the contour lines. You know, it crosses the contour lines, you know, toward the southern end. So it makes no sense to me that is the edge of the lake if those contour lines are indeed accurate. And so now, you know, I have to wonder about all the contour lines on the on the map, you know, if those contour lines are just a guess, or I'm not sure what's going on there. So that was my question, and you sort of got there ahead of me. So
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Jeff Viviano, you have your hand up. You have the floor.
Yes, I do, Madam Chair. I'm very familiar with this cove. I've been down there at least 100 times, just going on cruises in the pontoon boat. But there is a short retaining wall, and I think we have contour lines in there because they may have done this during lake drawdown. And then that one little corner is a little bit marshy in there. It doesn't really get much water. So I think what Butch was saying, that 301 line is pretty much the lake level. And if you kind of follow that around, it would make sense. So that retaining wall, the water pretty much comes up to it on that kind of northern side. And then the southern side, it's kind of just like a marshy area in there. So it's a shallow, kind of muddy area. So that would be my guess on the drawing itself. So
Thank you for that, Jeff. Chris McKenzie, you had your hand up. You have the floor.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to the questions about the contours there. I'm not exactly sure when the topography was taken out here. And I do know, as was stated, they do lower the lake level at certain times. I believe those contours are basically showing what's underwater in that area for grading.
Thank you, Chris. Do we have any other questions or comments from members of the commission? Okay. Mike LaRouche, I'll call on you. You have the floor.
Madam Chair, I was just curious to see if there's actually a DEP number for this project.
Yes, that has been issued. It's 208-1309, and there were no comments.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike. Rich Birch.
Yeah, Chris, I had a couple quick questions around the proposed well. So I see a 318 contour. Is
Yes.
that going to be the level of the grading? Is just that spot? We're going to leave the hill going up to, looks like maybe 325 behind it? Or are we taking the whole hill down to the 318 line?
Yeah, no, we're taking the whole hill down to the 318 line. I'm sure you're all familiar with the size of a well truck. If you look over on this side, you see there's a 318 contour here as well. So we're going to bring down this whole hill to that 318 contour.
Okay.
You can actually see there's another mound over here on the railroad track side, which we won't be interfering with.
Okay, so you're leveling the whole area between the well and the proposed septic. That whole area is going to be graded down to 318. Then we're going to drop off 317 around the edges.
Right. This is all pretty much going to be existing in here.
Okay.
So basically, once you get past this existing 318 contour in this area, and then it won't be touched anymore.
Okay, and do you have an idea how much fill that is coming out?
I don't have a number on that. Sorry, Rich. I don't have an exact number on it. It's a fairly high hill, but it's not all that large.
Okay, and the only other thing I guess I'd recommend is just where we're sitting at the very top of a steep hill. and we still have to account for all the runoff is staked hay bales and silt fence, or staked wattles and silt fence. I
Yeah,
think you're just showing staked wattles.
okay. Yeah, I don't think that'll be, yeah, I do only have the wattles shown, but adding,
Yeah,
silt
so if we,
fencing to that.
yeah, if we can get the buried and staked silt fence and then the wattles, just to really offer some protection where we've have been in a fairly rainy pattern, and you still have to account for the amount of water coming off of there once you open up that gravel at the top of the hill.
Understood.
Yeah, and it's still, I brought up the overhead, and the edge of the lake still doesn't really match the way you've got the wall drawn in there. So I guess myself, I'd like to just have it rechecked.
Understood.
Any other questions from members of the commission? Do we have any members of the public that have questions or comments? Okay, I'm seeing no hands raised from members of the public. So I think where we are is I think we're going to do a straw poll to see who wants to where the Conservation Commission feels about having the drawing and the actual proximity to the wetland clarified and confirmed in the drawing, or if they feel like they are confident enough in understanding where that wetland is compared to where the proposed work will be. So I'll just go down the list. Rich, what are your thoughts?
Myself, I'd like to see the plan updated, showing the proper edge of wet boundary of the lake. And then that will update the 50 and 100-foot buffer lines, make sure that everything is marked on the plan, and the inclusion of the staked silt fence and straw wattles.
Thank you, Rich. Mike, what are your thoughts?
Yes, Madam Chair, I think that's a reasonable request to be made at this time for this application.
Thank you, Mike. Jeff, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that sounds fair to me. Maybe if they could also just kind of locate some trees if they are up there within the 50 that will be taken. That would be my only additional comments.
Thank you, Jeff. Rich Tremblay.
I agree with Jeff. I'd like to see what we spoke about already, but I'd like to see those trees located that are going to be taken down.
Thank you, Rich. Chris.
Yes, just to echo on what they've said, I'm interested in the trees as well, especially for the way the truck's coming in.
Thank you, Chris. Bob.
I agree.
Okay, so Chris McKenzie, I think we'd like to continue to allow you time to make those updates. Assuming you're not opposed to that, I'll move to a vote on it.
Yeah, Madam Chair, that sounds fine to me. My only question would be, what's our lower limit on the diameter of trees we should locate? 2-inch seems a little small to me to be locating.
Yeah, I actually will rely on the members of the commission to provide you some advice, those who are interested in those trees being located.
Sure.
What size are you looking for? Bob, you have your hand up?
You know, I would say 4 to 6 inches. You know, anything smaller than that's, you know, more of a sapling. You know, it's a baby tree.
Fair enough. Fair enough. That sounds reasonable in my opinion too, Bob. I'm gonna put it to my commissioners to raise their hand if they have an alternate opinion, and I'm not seeing any. So does that give you some clear direction, Chris?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
So and will November 1st be enough time to be able to make those updates?
I believe so.
I think I'm looking for a motion from my commission to continue this to November 1st.
So moved, Rich Birch.
Second, Jeff.
Second, Rich Tremblay.
Okay, so I have a motion by Rich Birch and a second by Jeff Viviano. We'll do a roll call vote. Rich Birch,
Aye.
Mike LaRouche,
Aye.
Jeff Viviano,
Aye.
Richard Tremblay,
Aye.
Chris St. Germain,
Aye.
Bob Pease,
Aye.
and I for myself. Okay, we have continuation to November 1st.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving along to our next hearing. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended on the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands and Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing on a notice of intent by Richard Tremblay for the construction of a replacement septic tank at 386 Sunset Lane.
Madam Chair, I'll be
Rich.
recusing myself.
Okay. So then why don't you, do you have drawings to share, and do you want to take us through what you're doing down at your property?
Jack Maloney from Dillis and Roy. I am representing Mr. Tremblay tonight.
Very good.
Do I have permission to share the screen?
Indeed you do.
Thank you. All right, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, so locust map, Lake Shirley, Sunset Lane. We are roughly right where my hand is right now. About 4 houses back from the very tip of Sunset Lane. Sunset Lane runs right through the middle of Mr. Tremblay's property, as noted in the gray. Property lines are delineated in pink. Lake Shirley on this side, and we also have Lake Shirley on the other side. Mr. Tremblay currently has a 1,000-gallon septic tank over to a leach pit in this clouded area. Let me just blow it up a little bit. And that has failed a Title V, given the depth of the system in relation to the groundwater table. So he came to us to design him a new system, and what we have in front of you is pretty much what we came up with. So the 1,000-gallon tank and the leaching pit will be pumped, crushed, removed, and replaced with Title V sand as needed. The old septic tank is going to be replaced with a new, it's called a Singulair Model 600 Green. The plan that we originally submitted to the commission with the notice of intent has changed recently due to the Board of Health meeting that we had on Monday night. The original system had a 1,500-gallon poly tank to the 500-gallon poly pump chamber like it is, and then we had a little bit larger footprint for the septic system. But after we progressed through the Board of Health hearing, we came to the conclusion that we should put in one of these Singulair tanks. We have used these on a couple of sites this year with the Board of Health and with the commission. 86 Oak Ridge Drive was one of the latest ones, and before that was 1074 Lancaster Ave on Massapog Pond. So similar system. This just happens to be a plastic tank versus the concrete tank. Same with the pump chamber. We have used or proposing a 500-gallon poly tank. Once the effluent goes through the treatment tank and into the pump chamber, it will get pumped up into a geomat system, which is the same system again that we used at 1074 Massapog Pond. It's a very low profile mat system. It's about 1 inch thick matting that has a sleeve in the back or on top of it that you insert the pressure distribution pipe that comes from the pump chamber. So when the pump chamber kicks on, the whole system gets lit up for 4 or 5 minutes with effluent, and then it shuts off and gives the system a chance to breathe, so to speak. A little bit of moisture and effluent, and then it shuts down and gets some oxygen back in the system and recovers. And this happens constantly throughout the day, depending on the amount of effluent that's going into the system. This being a 3-bedroom house, typically you're only looking at maybe 200 gallons a day, even though Title V says 330 is what we should use. Anyway, this system, we can put as close to 5 feet from a foundation because of the nature of how it works. With that being said, we have a 40 mil poly barrier in this dark line that my cursor is running down now, in between the system and the foundation, only due to the height. It's going to be raised a little bit. The grade's going to be raised a little bit from the height that it is now. And we want to ensure that there's no migration of effluent towards the foundation, and that it is in fact kept in a downward motion. We also are proposing another 40 mil poly barrier on this side, and it actually has a little bit of an L shape in the back here, and I'll get to that in a second. And then on the other side of that, we have a very short retaining wall. Right now, we're proposing the 2 foot by 2 foot by 4 foot Graves blocks. Graves Concrete Company makes these precast blocks that have a V notch on top, and the bottom side has a V notch on the bottom that they fit in. And for short walls like this, this is a perfect use for it. We do have a couple of trees down in this area. One of them we are working around, and we don't want to take any trees down in this area. So that's one of the reasons why we put the 40 mil poly barrier in an L here, so we can cut that grading down a little bit steeper without having any issues for this tree in the future. This wall is going to be stepped. The top of the wall itself is at 3065. It does have a 6-inch cap on it. So the block wall itself is 306, and then the cap would bring it up to 3065 up until you get to the last block. And then this block is a foot lower because the grade is tapering down. So we have a gradual slope area on the top. We go from 3065 to 3063 to 306, and then we go down on a 2-to-1 slope after that across the tanks. We have proposed wattles in this orange line to wrap the system. There is a stockade fence that runs up along the property line here. Those wattles will be placed up along the bottom of those, that stockade fence. And this first red line is the 30-foot no touch, and then we have the 50-foot buffer zone with the second red line. Any questions or concerns from the commission? I'd be happy to answer.
First, comments. The colors and the detail in the drawing are super helpful. It's really clear, and I do appreciate the time and effort it takes to do that. So thank you for that. I was out there this weekend. It looks fairly straightforward as far as I can tell. So I didn't really have any questions or comments. So I'll open the floor for my fellow commissioners. It looks like Rich Birch has his hand raised. Rich, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hey, Jack, I'm just not as familiar with this system. How deep down are you putting these mats?
These mats are actually going to be, we had a groundwater table of 5 feet at that test hole. So basically the surface, the top and subsoil, and any fill material that may be there from over the years is going to be removed and then filled up to, let me just get to the elevation chart, Rich.
Okay.
So 3044 is the bottom of the C33 sand, and then 3049. So there's a 1/2 foot of C33 sand going in That 304.4 would have an interface with Title V sand down to the naturally occurring parent material that's below the old top and subsoil. And then, so again, it's a very shallow system, very low profile versus like a Presby system or a traditional stone and pipe system.
Okay, so how much material's on top of the matting that you're flooding?
Backfilling with?
Yeah.
About a foot.
Okay. And you
The Title V says we have to have a minimum of 9 inches over this system.
okay, yeah, I know the schematic said minimum of 6, but and you don't have a problem with these freezing?
No,
Okay. And is there a check valve or something where you have basically a 1 foot slope from uphill to downhill and then another foot down into the pump tank? That if it does happen to freeze up in there, that then the effluent's not percolating into the sand. I just want to make sure that, and I'm sure somebody's thought about this, so it's not flowing back into the pump chamber.
so what happens is there's a weep hole that's drilled in above the check valve that's inside the pump chamber. So when it does shut off, anything that doesn't get absorbed into the system will backflow, or whatever residual is left in the force main and manifold.
Mm-hmm.
And all pump systems are designed like that, regardless of whether it's a geomat or stone and pipe system.
Okay. Yeah, no, other than that, it looks pretty straightforward. So, and you have just staked wattles.
We do. I think along the fence is that's probably the best scenario. If the commission so wants, a silt fence along that bottom slope from where it starts to bend out to back to the patio area. I don't think Mr. Tremblay would have any issue with that. It's not a steep slope, but there is a slope there, so I do understand that concern that you're getting to.
Yeah, and when you're doing when you're planning on doing the construction this fall?
I believe so. I think Richard wants to get this going as soon as possible.
Okay, yeah, so I mean, the weather could change. We could have some frost in the ground that would prohibit the rains from percolating in. So I would like to see if we can the silt fence, stake silt fence, and then the straw wattles.
Yep, if that's okay with the commission, if that could be added into the conditions, that would be fantastic.
Yep, if you agree, I have no problem with that. Thank you, Jack.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Rich. Jeff Viviano, you have the floor.
Thank you, madam. I guess the question is, how do you get equipment down there? I know it's a pretty tall wall from the driveway there.
I've talked to a couple of contractors over the last week or so from when we first started designing this. There's no access to the I guess the north of this property due to how both properties are set up. Mr. Kullberg, along in here, there's a series of retaining walls that step down towards Richard's site, and then Mr. Luck has his property over here, and I'm not sure if there would be any form of access from his property. So what we looked at is we talked to a few companies. I talked to another one this morning while I was out doing some testing in Concord, and they said that they have done what they have done in the past in situations like this is they've actually dropped a mini excavator down, and for a situation like this, a mini excavator would probably do all that work that's needed down there. They would have another machine sitting up in a staging area up in the driveway, and then just lowering blocks and parts and pieces, sand over the top of the wall, and the other machine would put it in place. Again, that's one of the reasons why we're using the poly tanks versus any concrete tanks, just for ease of installation. The poly tanks are the septic tank that we're looking at is about anywhere from 600 to 800 pounds, which a little mini machine and a couple guys can move. And the poly pump chamber is a little bit lighter than that. So just
Okay.
because of the situation, we
So-
look to try to minimize big equipment to try to get down there.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, that's a pretty tight spot back there, yeah. Other comment, I appreciate the little cutout there to save the tree. That's great. Love the colors on the map, on the plan as well, on the plan as well. It helps out a lot when you're trying to.
Yeah, there's a
determine
lot
what's
of
what.
there's a lot of
Yep.
information on this. So whatever I could do
Lot going
to
on.
make it easier for everybody.
Yep. And I assume there were no DEP comments and you have a.
No,
number and all?
we do have a DEP number. We received it at just almost 2:00 this afternoon. 208-1310 is the number, and there were no comments.
Okay.
Just to let everybody know, I don't think it has even hit the website yet. So this was something that was emailed to us earlier today, and I don't think they've had time to update their website yet. So
Okay, excellent. Yeah, it seems very straightforward to me. Pretty easy system to get in there. Appreciate it. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. Bob, you had your hand up, but you took it down. Were your questions answered?
Well, I was gonna ask about the DEP number and DEP comments, and he did answer that question. I would just like to say I appreciate the colors. It seems all very well done. I don't have any concerns at this time about this project at all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Or any other questions or comments from fellow commissioners? Okay, are there members of the public that have any questions or comments? Carl Luck, you have the floor.
Hello, 1 second, reduce the noise. Sorry about that. Yeah, Carl Luck, 50 Sunset Lane, where we own the property that, the abutting property to the south, where it says shed. That's our property. I have a couple areas of concern. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see this print. I know Jack had been working on it feverishly to get it for the meeting. Unfortunately, I didn't get a copy, so I'm a little on the fly here. The system itself looks great. The changes that were made after the Board of Selectmen, Board of Health, Board of Selectmen on my mind, are excellent. And it does remove where one of the major concerns is that I'd like to try to drill down a little bit more into, and that's the wall that is shown abutting our property line and the fence, as the engineer said. The note, this is the perfect view for at least the start of the question. The note, if you could move if I could see a little bit lower. I'm looking for the note that says the block wall. Thank you. Perfect. There's been a little change here, and I'd like to understand why. The bottom of the wall on this print says it's at elevation 302. The print that was presented to the Board of Health was 301.5, and I believe that was based on Dillis and Roy doing a survey of the level of our property just at the bottom of the fence. My understanding was that it surveyed out at 301.5, and that's what that used to say. I'm wondering why it's now showing the wall being a half a foot above my grade.
But the wall has been pushed further away from the fence. If you remember on Monday night, the original wall was parallel to the fence, which the concern on Monday night was that if we were to put that wall in, then the fence obviously would have to come down, and there was a whole concern about that on your side of it. So now with the system getting 25% smaller than it was Monday night because of the treatment tank, we have the ability to push the wall further away from your property. So not touching that fence or having any issue with the earthen material from the left corner of the shed as you're looking at it down towards the lake doesn't become an issue, because we can just dig right through that material on Mr. Tremblay's side of that fence and be able to insert those blocks without having an issue of anything collapsing on your side.
Madam Chair, through you, I guess that's the way to go. So what is the elevation? The elevation on my side is 302 to the left in this picture of the shed. So right in the corner, at the corner of the shed next to the fence, the elevation, my understanding is 301.5. Can I confirm?
So your side of the fence is fairly level, Carl. It's 301.5, 301.4, and 301.5 were the spot shots I took right along the bottom of the fence.
That's great.
And then I did take some spot shots along the top, and it was about anywhere from a foot to a foot and a half higher. This being where my cursor is now, being the foot and a half higher at the ground elevation on Richard's side.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's correct. But so it seems that there's going to be a slope from the 301.5 up to the 302 at the wall, or is it more of a slope than that?
It's so whatever the grade is right on the other side of the fence is going to remain the same. Is basically what's going to happen. Is going to be a gap between the fence and the wall that's facing your property.
So there'll be, because as you say now, the fence is extended, and actually that soil is being held back by 2x6 or 2x10 or 12 or whatever's pressure treated boards that are creating the holdback for that soil. So the soil will be the same level when this is done as it is now on the Tremblay side of the fence.
Yep, exactly.
And it'll be a very short amount of soil. Okay. And the bottom of the wall where it says 302 on the print now, that'll be quite a bit below grade then.
Up on this side, yes, and as you come down to here, it won't be. It'll so this is right where my hand is. That's a 304 there. So, you're looking at maybe a foot below grade on this side. But if you look at the 40 mil poly barrier, the poly barrier still goes down to elevation 301. So that hasn't changed.
Yes, good. I did notice that. So, but at that point where the 304, as you just pointed, the top of the wall is still at 306.5.
Yep.
And the bottom of the wall is a 302, so it's 4.5 feet.
2.5 feet from 304 to 306.5.
No, but after fill, that's 306.
Fill on the inside is 306. So there's a half, the cap is sticking up, which we had talked about the other day when you came into the office about we have a 1/2 foot cap on top of that wall, which for runoff purposes, even though we have runoff from right to left, if there's anything that comes laterally towards your property, will get caught along that wall and pushed along that wall towards the lake.
Okay, that's great. That is what we talked about, and I appreciate that, but the numbers are throwing me here. Because if the elevation of the fill of the surface over the leach field is 306, so we'll
Yep. And
no,
the existing grade right now is 304.
but that grade's going away. It's going to be after the leach field is there, it's going to be 306.
Correct.
Okay. So we're going to have the real point is what you just said, which is great. We'll have, it looks like a 1/2 foot above the grade, whatever the heck it is, on the leach field side. Is that correct?
Correct.
1/2 foot. Perfect. Great. Thank you very much. That I think that takes care of that whole thing. So on the second page, there's a detail. Could we go over there for a second, please? Of that wall.
Oops, sorry. I don't have this. Oh, here it is. Yep, I do have it.
Oh.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're better than you thought. Okay, so here, great. This detail has changed. That's marvelous. So now does show that it's going a bit above the grade, whatever it is. So thank you very much. And the note says, where did it go? Existing grade. So that note there, existing grade, is which grade? The grade on our side of the fence or the other side of the fence?
This here?
Yeah.
Where the cursor is, Carl?
Yes, yeah, that existing grade. Which grade is
Yeah,
that?
so that's the existing grade that's underneath the leaching field. Again, this is just a generic impervious barrier detail. None of these elevations are drawn to scale. So this is basically showing how the impervious barrier fits in relationship to the wall that we have here.
Okay, so but again, I understand this is a generic drawing, and you've made it more specific to this project, which is great, by showing 2 blocks and a cap. So that's wonderful. But if we look at this, I still think we should indicate which grade it's talking about, because that's the place where it shows that it's below grade, which is important.
I guess I'm lost in what you're asking for.
When it says existing grade, which grade is it talking about? The grade on the Tremblay side of the fence or the grade on the Lux side?
Tremblay side.
So
We're not working on your side of the property. We're working on Tremblay side of the property. So again, this is just take the existing grade right out of there. This detail is to show how the impervious barrier is to be set into the ground and in its relationship to the proposed retaining wall.
yeah, so it might be it might be just get rid of that existing grade, because it's very confusing, because it doesn't look at all like that, because we're going to
Correct. Again, it's for the impervious barrier detail and for the wall. It's nothing to scale. So, you can't go by that if you're trying to figure out, what it's going to look like on your side. I didn't do a cross section going to your side, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying, because it's hard. It's hard, and the commissioners, I'm sure, it's hard to appreciate what's going on here. We've got a grade on our side of the fence, and the fence posts. The grade at the fence post which is on the Tremblay side. The grade under the fence, the Tremblay fence, is the 301.5, or and it varies, as you said, which is great that you captured that. So the grade at the fence is, let's call it 301.5. It then steps up immediately right at the other side of the post. On the back of the posts, there are 2 by whatever's, pressure treated whatever's against the posts, not against the fence, against the posts, that step up to as much as 1.5 feet. So if you picture a fence there on our grade, the property line side of the Tremblay grade steps up 1.5 feet, which would be up around, help me out here, 1.5 feet, 303. So there's a step up 303. It goes for a little bit, which varies over the length of the wall, because the wall is not parallel to the line. And I don't know, could you take a guess or tell how far it is from the fence to the wall in that area, that 18-inch area? Yeah, right at the corner of the fence. I'm a corner of the shed. Yep, right there.
So from the property line to the edge of the wall is just shy of 2 feet, right where I show it.
Okay, great, perfect. So it goes over flat for 2 feet, and then there's a wall. And at that point, just to confirm, the wall bottom of the wall still goes down to the 302.
Correct.
Beautiful. And then it steps up, whatever's left, 3-4 feet of block will be showing in that area, not 4, 3 feet of block will be showing. So we go to the fence from our level, we step up 18 inches, go a foot.
So
back.
if you look at this right here, 304 comes in and then it wraps, comes back down.
Yeah, okay.
So the elevation of the ground between the proposed wall and the fence currently is 304.
Yes,
So
good.
there's going to be 2.5 feet that's showing on your side of the fence between the fence and the wall.
Got it. Okay, good. Yeah, the key thing, which is great, is it still goes down. How high it goes, it doesn't matter to me. It clearly matters there, but as long as it goes down far enough so that nothing can ever come underneath it, that's great.
And like I said, the poly barrier still goes down. Where is it? Poly barrier still goes down below that to a 301 elevation. So it goes down even a half a foot below the elevation on your side.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Okay, so I think that is all clear to me. Appreciate the patience. And the other concern I had regarding the wall was relative to the runoff, and I think you've addressed that with the cap that's at least 6 inches proud. So I don't see that as the runoff as an issue anymore. And when we get to the end of 306, it slopes down kind of gradually. And I don't see a problem with that. So I don't know that there's any need for any other stormwater issues regarding runoff or anything. I don't think you do either. You would have put them in there. Okay, so that's wonderful. The only other thing of just concern I'd like to throw out, and actually I'm sure getting some inputs from the commissioners. And I'm sure I would disappoint some of the commissioners if I didn't bring up trees. So what's not shown, I understand the tree of discussion here, and the other tree is even further away. So I don't see any issues there, but there is a tree that's not on the plan, which is to the right of the shed. Literally is touching the overhang of the shed and about midway in the shed. It's about 4 feet from the property line, and I don't know how much more to add, a foot or so maybe, Jack, to the excavation. Is that a reasonable estimate? So it's maybe 5 feet away, and it's a very large, roughly a 2-foot diameter oak that's 50 to 60 feet tall, huge canopy. Been there longer than I have. And I just not sure. I know when when I had the pleasure of being on the commission, many permits would come before us, and when people were working and digging near a large tree like that, putting foundations in or whatever, they would generally ask to remove the tree because of the root damage. And I just would like to get some feedback in terms of the likelihood of, because we're going to be digging down, I don't know how much, Jack, pretty deep in that area, and clearly very deep in the whole leach field area. And the roots certainly, of a 60-foot, 2-foot diameter oak certainly go over there. And again, it's 4 feet from the fence. So what is the likelihood of damaging those roots and therefore damaging the tree, which, we won't know for maybe 5 years or something. So could I get any comments from the commission? My favorite expert there, Mr. Bursch, in terms of the likelihood of, irrevocable damage to the tree due to the digging, say within, 5 feet of that tree.
Rich, did you have any comment or that you wanted to add to that question?
I did see Bob had his hand up, and if maybe Jack could just put his cursor hand on where that tree was while Bob is commenting.
I
I
think
was just
Carl's
gonna
thinking
ask
over in
him-
here.
Yeah, it's
I
exactly,
was just gonna ask if you could show where this tree was.
it's dead center in that shed and right against the shed, literally touching the shed.
So it's on Kyle's land,
Yes,
about how many feet away from where this retaining wall is gonna go?
Probably 5 or 6 feet, maybe.
that's 4
And
feet.
how far down is, are you gonna dig right there?
We should be down probably 4 feet to the bottom of the wall right there.
Thank you very much. That helps me to for my own uneducated opinion about the prospect for damage.
And what type of tree is it, Jack or Carl?
It's oak. I don't know which color oak.
Yeah,
I
generally,
believe it's a black oak.
yeah, generally oaks tend to have a tap root. And what's the elevation there where the stump's going to be?
I
301.
don't know. I don't know what that elevation is on the other side of the fence, Rich. I didn't take any shots down there. I think it's a lot higher. The property on the other side of the shed, between the shed and Carl's house, 392. It's definitely lower, but I think on that higher side, and I may be misspeaking, I think the elevation, the ground is a lot higher over that side.
Yeah, Jack, you're exactly right. There is nothing below the fence for that holds it back. So it's the same. After you get past the fence, the elevation is the same on both sides. Whatever that is.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, without
After you get
seeing
past the
the
shed.
exact conditions, I guess I wouldn't worry too much about it if it was an oak.
Okay.
At this point, Carl, I mean, it has a pretty good canopy area
That's true.
around the shed and on your side of the property. You know, the roots that do get cut over there, I mean, the tree will work vigorously to replace.
Okay, great. I
Yeah,
appreciate.
so I wouldn't worry too much about that one.
Okay, super. I appreciate your sharing that with me. So Madam Chair, I think I'm done. Based on this, on behalf of all the owners of the abutters, I think this is a good plan. It addresses all the concerns that we had a few days ago, and I would support it.
Thank you, Carl. Do
You
we have
very-
any questions or comments from any other members of the public? Okay, seeing none, I think I am looking for a motion to approve with an order of condition the silt fence get added in addition to the straw wattle.
So moved.
So moved. Second, Jeff.
Second, Mike.
Okay, I got a motion by Bob Pease and a second by Jeff Viviano. Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Rich Bursch,
Aye.
Mike LaRouche,
Aye.
Jeff Viviano,
Aye.
Chris St. Germain,
Aye.
Bob Pease,
Aye.
and I for myself. For the purposes of this vote, Rich Tremblay is recused from being a commissioner, because it's his property. Okay. So it is that NOI is approved with silt fence and straw wattle as the order in the order of conditions.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thank you. All right, moving along. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended in the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands Protection and Municipal Bylaws. A public hearing on a request for a determination by Mario Paciolo for removal of decaying trees at 143 Island Road. Oh, okay. Do we have Mario or his representative here with us tonight? I am not hearing
I
anybody.
believe Ryan's the representative, but I'm not hearing from him.
Bob, you were thinking it was Ryan Proctor.
I believe it was Ryan. I thought I saw something from him before, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, we're not hearing from Ryan. So maybe Ryan's not thinking he's speaking to this. Ryan Proctor, or if you're available,
Oh.
could you, are you representing 143 Island Road? Or no?
I am not. Nope.
Okay,
Sorry, my
Sorry.
bad.
that's all right. Okay, well, if we don't have the representatives, I don't know if we can proceed. Can we proceed without them here?
I move we continue. I'm sorry, the chair was not looking for a motion, but
I'm
if the
looking
chair
for a
was looking
motion,
for a motion, I would make such a one.
but I'm happy to have a motion. I'd be happy to have a second on that motion.
I'll second that. Mike?
LaRouche, okay. We'll go for a roll call vote. Rich Birsch,
Aye.
Mike LaRouche,
Aye.
Jeff Viviano,
Aye.
Rich Tremblay,
Aye.
Chris St. Germain,
Aye.
Bob Pease.
Aye,
And that is approval for continuance to November 1st. Okay, thank you. Moving along. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended, and the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands Protection and Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing on a request for determination by Nashua River Watershed Association for the planting of approximately 24 to 30 seedlings and dribble bar at 69 Brookfield Terrace and 233 Island Road. And so these two properties are on either side of Mulpus Brook. Do we have someone from the property owner or National River Watershed Association with us tonight to talk about this project?
Hi, yes, my name is Jessica Vasey Powell. I'm the watershed scientist at Nashua River Watershed Association.
Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on there?
Sure. So we are participating in a grant from the U.S. Department of Agriculture Forest Service. And the goal of the grant is to restore riparian areas throughout the Merrimack River watershed. And we are implementing the grant in our watershed, the Nashua River watershed. And so we've been looking for sites throughout the watershed that are sparsely vegetated with woody plants within 200 feet of their banks. And we actually had a landowner, Sarah Coronella, who owns these two properties that we're talking about tonight, who came to us when she heard about the grant, asking if we would, if this would be an appropriate site for the grant. So I'll give you a little bit of description of the parcel, and it's two properties on either side of Mulpus Brook. Both areas are well forested, but if you get down under the canopy, heavy rainfall and flooding in the last year or so has basically stripped parts of the bank of the woody vegetation. And so it's sort of like the sandy soil that's exposed, and you can see that there's been sedimentation into the brook in that area. And so our goal would be to go in and plant silky dogwood and silver maple in that area in order to stabilize the bank, reduce the amount of erosion going into the brook, provide some additional shade to bring down temperatures in the brook if possible, and filter out any other pollutants that might find their way through the forest to the brook in that area. So the maximum length along the brook that we would be looking at is 200 feet, but most likely it's more like 100 feet. The maximum depth away from the brook would be 100 feet, but in most areas, it's more like 50 to 70 feet deep away from the brook. And we're proposing to plant 1 to 2 rows of these they're bare root seedlings, so they're pretty tiny right now. They're a foot or less tall, to put them in about every 8 feet in those 1 to 2 rows. And we'd use, I can share some, okay, thanks, some pictures here. That's interesting. That's not one of the pictures that I have, and maybe I can share what I have afterwards. or if you have more, that'd be great. So we'd use a dibble bar, which is like a long, thin spade, to basically just sort of open up a little insertion area in the soil, put the seedling right in the ground, and then kind of close it back up, almost like a incision on your skin, you know. There's not a lot of disturbance at all. There's very little soil that's moved, no soil's brought onto the site, no soil's brought off of the site. And the bare root seedlings seem to do pretty well when we use that method. We would aim to get up to probably about 30 to 40 of these seedlings in this area by the end of the first week in November. And we've planted over the last, we've been working on this grant for about 1.5 years, and we planted in the first week of November last year, and those seedlings survived. So unless the weather takes a great turn, it takes a great change, we anticipate that these would as well. So it's a little bit atypical from some of the other sites we've been looking at, in that there is this forested canopy. But if you go out there, maybe you have been out there already, you can see that there's these areas right along the bank that are exposed, and then a few other clearing type areas that have been exposed as well, a little bit further away from the direct bank of the brook. And the landowner said that she's open to us planting in those areas as well, in order to just stabilize a little bit further away from the brook itself as well. So she sort of told us that recently, and that's why when I say the maximum would be this and the minimum would be this, we haven't been back out to the site to take a look at those areas she's talking about, but we'd be interested in planting them if they look like they could benefit from some stabilization. So I'm happy to show a few additional photos that I have.
We would love to see them.
Yeah, okay. Let me just pull them up here. And okay. So this is the area, this is one side of the brook, and where I think where my cursor is sort of showing you some. You can see the sand through this area. This doesn't look too exposed, but if you look at the other side, it looked more like this when we were there before the leaves came down. So those are the two photos that I have to share, and then I was just going to show for anybody who is, let me see if I can, 1 second. If you're not familiar with the dibble bar method, I'll just show you a schematic of that. You can see here, this is a lot of text. You don't even have to really read the text, but if you look at the photos here, you can kind of see, you sort of peel back the soil a little bit, put your seedling in, close it up, not too much disturbance. And then the only other image I really have to share is, hold on, let's see, you can see this as well, the aerial shot here?
Not yet.
Oh, you can't see it yet.
Maybe
Okay.
you have it on a different screen.
Yep, okay, hold on 1 sec. Here it is. This is showing the aerial photograph. So the landowner's home is right here in this stretch of 69 Brookview Terrace. And the area that we're talking about is down along the brook here. On the south side, you can see where the proposed plantings are in the green circles. And then on the north side, this is completely forested. Her land on the north side is completely forested. So it's just, there's no other development over there. We would just cross the stream and do the plantings where the green dots are as well on the northern side. And that's really all that I have to say. I think it's minimal disturbance, and it could help to stabilize these banks a little bit, but I'm definitely open to questions or comments that you may have.
I think it's an excellent project. I had the privilege of walking down there with Rich Tremblay this weekend, yeah, I think it's a great thing. And when we were there were a lot of leaves in the photos, but when you're there in person, you can tell how much of the topsoil has been washed away and how many roots from the trees that have remained are bare and exposed. So this would, I think this would be an excellent project. Is the National River Watershed Association still taking applications for this grant?
Absolutely. I was going to end with that. We're sort of desperately looking for sites, actually. So if you know of any sites that might have potential, we're very interested to hear about them. You could just send me an email, or the woman my colleague who was corresponding with you originally, Marissa, you could also send her an email. She's the one who submitted the application.
Okay, that is
yeah,
very
or
good
if
to
you know
know.
sites right now, you could tell me and we could just sort of begin the investigation from our end right away.
I don't off the top of my head, and I don't want to hold my commissioners any later tonight than I'm going
I
to have to do.
understand.
But I am certain that for those of us that are active out on the trails on the conservation properties, that we will have a short list in no time.
Excellent. I appreciate it.
I don't have any further questions for you. I will now give the floor to Bob Pease.
I don't have any questions. It's a fabulous project. It's my personal opinion that this is an exempt activity and no application was needed. I believe the planting of native vegetation with minimal soil disturbance. There's an exemption for that, and it's my belief that if we had had a full-time staff member when this application came in, the applicant might have been told no application was necessary. But that's just my personal opinion, and I don't have anywhere near the mastery of the rules that our chair or Richard Birch or Rich Tremblay has. So, but thank you so much for this wonderful application.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Rich Birch, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I was going to agree with Bob that I think this is an exempt project. It's great to see them using the silver maples in there. Silver maples tend to grow a lot more like willows, very dense root systems, really help to hold back the bankings and keep any further erosion from taking place. Where is the material sourced from, Jessica?
Yeah, so it came from the New Hampshire State Forest Nursery. I think it's something, I'm not sure if that's exact right title, but that's the idea. It's their state tree nursery.
Super. So it's a local plant. And are you putting any aggregate or anything in with them, or you just take the dibble bar?
Yeah, we don't usually
trace
add
and
anything. We just
swap 'em in?
usually put the plants in and let it go from there. They usually do pretty well.
Perfect. And I may have missed it. Is there a rhyme or reason to how you're picking which hole gets a dogwood and which hole gets a maple?
Not necessarily. We sort of look at if there's any exceptional things on the site that would suggest that one should go in a certain place or not. For instance, if they're like we've had utility lines on other sites where we're going to put like a tree with giant roots right next to it. So we've done the bushes there. But otherwise we sort of just alternate them so that there's varied canopy along the length.
Perfect. Yeah, it's great to see. It's been a while since you guys have done a project along any of the waterways in Lunenburg. So it's great to see you coming into town and helping out.
Good. Great.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Rich. Any other questions or comments by members of the commission? There are none. I'll ask if there are any questions or comments from members of the public. I'm seeing none, so I'm looking for notice to approve this RDA with a negative determination.
So moved.
Thank you, Mike.
Second,
St. Germain, thank you. Roll call vote, Rich Birch,
Aye.
Mike LaRouche,
Aye.
Jeff Viviano,
Aye.
Rich Tremblay,
Aye.
Chris St. Germain,
enthusiastic aye.
Bob Pease,
Aye.
and I for myself with similar enthusiasm. So thank you, Jessica, for
Great.
this
Can I-
excellent endeavor.
Okay, great. Thanks. I really appreciate you taking the time tonight and your positive feedback. If I might just ask one more question, just in terms of the timeline here, how long do we need to wait before we could actually plant, or do we have the go ahead with your vote tonight?
I think you have to go ahead with our vote tonight.
Okay.
I don't think you have to wait for an official letter, but I'll Bob or Rich, who have chaired before me, do they need to wait for our official letter?
Well, in my opinion, since the application was really unnecessary to begin with, absolutely not.
Yeah.
All right, great.
That's-
Well, thank you
that's
again
my-
for your time.
Rich, I saw you unmute.
Yeah, I was going to agree with what Bob said. I mean, technically, they're supposed to wait for the letter, but I don't see, given the scope of the project and the fact that it's probably exempt anyways, that anybody is going to come forth and complain or look for an appeal.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Thank you,
thank you. Have a good
Jessica.
night. Yep.
Okay, moving along. I That's really a cool thing. I think those of us that are out there on the conservation properties ought to keep our eyes peeled for other opportunities, take advantage of that to improve the conservation land. Okay, we are moving along to continued public hearings. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, as amended in the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands Protection and Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing on a request for determination by A&M Construction Services for the construction of 3 residential homes with associated driveways, utilities, and raid gardens at 274 Prospect Street. Do we
Miss
have representatives here tonight?
Mary?
Yeah, Bob.
I believe we approved this at the last meeting and I had sent Ashley a memo and you saying that in my opinion, it shouldn't be on the agenda since it was approved at the last meeting.
Ah, correct. Yeah.
And so
And this may actually be, I might not be looking at the right agenda because I was looking at the draft because for some reason I couldn't connect to the town site
yeah,
tonight to
it's- and
download
it's
the
not on
current
the
one.
actual- It's not on the new agenda, so.
Okay.
It's not on the posted agenda.
Okay. Okay, cool. So apologies for that. Do we need to take a vote since we have already approved it? It's just an
Nope.
error, right? Okay,
It's
let's
just an
move
error.
on then.
Move on.
Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, as amended in the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands Protection and Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing on a request for determination by Karina Veenstra for the
We
placement
have,
of four.
same thing.
Same thing. Okay, what about the 38 Oak Ridge
Yes,
Road?
that's our next hearing.
Okay, let's start there then. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, is amended in the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands Protection and Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing on a notice of intent by Peter and Lily Coronis for the demolition of an existing dwelling and a detached garage and construction of a new single-family dwelling driveway, septic tank at 38 Oak Ridge Road. Do we have the Coronis family or their representative here tonight?
Ryan Proctor from Dillis and Roy representing Peter and Lily Coronis for their projects.
Thank
So if
you,
you don't
Ryan.
mind,
Why don't you just refresh us on where we are with this?
Absolutely. So we've had 2 commission meetings so far. The last meeting was continued. Primarily, there were basically 2 items. There was request for a stockpile location to be shown on the plan. And then some additional mitigation landscaping for the proposed tree removal on the site. So I did submit revised documents last week with an updated planting schedule and locations on the site plan. I'm happy to share my screen and go through those right now.
If you
you'd
would,
like.
please.
I will. Yep. Okay, so the first item I mentioned was the stockpile location. This was brought up at the last meeting. So I showed a location up towards Oak Ridge Road outside of the 100-foot buffer zone, which is this orange dashed line here. This is an existing disturbed area. So I did show that area outside of the 100-foot, and then I showed some straw wattles around that stockpile location, just to provide some additional erosion control around that. And then the second item was relative to the landscaping. Just to give a refresher, we're proposing to take 9 trees for the project, one of which is dead, but we included in our calculation anyways. 3 of those trees, these 3 here that I've circled in red, are within the 30-foot wetland buffer. So to provide mitigation for that, we're providing and now proposing a 2-to-1 replacement. So within the 30, we're proposing a total of 6 trees, and their locations are roughly in the same location, 4 of them in the roughly the same location as the trees that we're taking down. So we have a red oak, another red oak here, and then we have 2 red maples scattered along that. And then an additional 2 trees within the 30-foot are proposed on the southern portion of the site in the location of where the existing house is being removed. So we have another oak, another maple there within the 30. So we're taking out 3 trees from the 30-foot buffer, and we're going to be replacing 6 in their place. And then the remaining 6 trees between the 30 and the 100-foot buffer zone, we're proposing a 1-to-1 replacement. So for each tree we're taking down, we're going to be replacing another one We have a combination of dogwood trees, an additional oak and a maple tree, and those will be installed between the proposed house, which is shown here in salmon color, and the southern property line. And in addition to the plantings, and just to provide some further stabilization, we do have some low shrubbery. We have some low bush blueberry and some mountain laurel along the property line and south of the proposed septic system along the slope to provide some stabilization there. So those were the only two comments from the last meeting. So those were the only plan changes since the last hearing. So if there's any questions on that or anything additional, I'm happy to address those questions now.
It's also consistent with the notes I had from the previous meeting as well. So thank you for that, Ryan. And it answered my concerns specifically about the tree replacement schedule. So again, thank you. Are there questions or comments from other members of the commission?
I think it's a good plan, especially the 2-to-1. I think that's very proactive and a good effort forward.
Thank you, Chris. Rich Tremblay, you had some questions or comments?
Just a question. Thanks, Madam Chair. Ryan, down by the 30-foot, the trees that are coming out.
Yep.
Are we taking the stumps out too?
We are. There's going to be some grading there for the septic system, so that is the intent to take the stumps out. But then, like I said, we will be replacing in those locations with the new trees to help restabilize those areas.
Okay, thank you. No other questions, Madam Chair.
Okay, I am not seeing any other questions by members of the commission. Are there members of the public that have questions, comments? Okay, and I am not seeing any further questions from members of the public. So, Brian, would you remind me what you have for the silt or the erosion control barrier there?
Yep, we have the straw wattle with the silt fence. That was a comment that was at the opening public hearing that we had addressed at the last meeting. So that we have a detail shown here on the plan.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yep, you're welcome.
And you guys have a DEP number now, right?
We do. Yeah, we had one prior to the last meeting. It's 208-1306, and their comments were addressed in the letter at the previous hearing.
Very good. So I think I'm looking for a motion to approve. If the commission is willing to make that motion.
So moved. Mike?
Thank you,
Second.
Mike. Chris St. Germain, thank you. Okay, well, it looks like somewhere along the way we lost Rich Bursch.
Oh, I'm back.
Oh, you're back? Oh, did you drop and dial back in?
Yeah, the satellite must have gone over the horizon.
Okay. I pin all of the commissioners, so it's easy to tell, I don't lose track of you if we have a lot of participants and you suddenly weren't there anymore. So okay. So we did have a motion by Mike LaRouche and a second by Chris St. Germain. So now we're going to go for a roll call vote. Rich Bursch,
Aye.
Bob Pease,
And I would note that I have filed a Mullins rule form for this.
thank you, Bob. I'm just making that note. Chris St. Germain,
Aye.
Rich Tremblay,
Aye.
Jeff Viviano,
Aye.
Mike LaRouche,
Aye.
and I for myself. So thank you for that, Ryan.
Thank you.
Best of luck to you guys on your project, and we will move
Thanks.
along. Okay, for those of you that have the updated agenda, is 6 Peninsula Drive our next hearing?
You betcha.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended, and the town of Lunenburg's wetlands protection and municipal bylaws, a public hearing on a notice of intent by Denise Charpentier for the removal of an existing dwelling and the construction of a single-family dwelling at 6 Peninsula Drive. Do we have Denise and or her representatives here tonight?
Ryan Proctor, Dilson Roy representing this one also, and Denny Charpentier is on the call with us as well.
Thank you, Ryan. You want to update us on this project?
I'd be happy to. This was in a very similar situation as the previous one. The last outstanding item that we'd requested the continuance for was relative to landscape mitigation. So I did submit a revised site plan and cover letter relative to that, and I updated the landscape planting schedule on the site plan as well. So I'll just go ahead and share my screen here so I can show you those locations again.
Thank you.
So in addition, on the previous site plan, we had the 3 birch trees. For the project, we're proposing 4 trees that we're removing outside. They're between the 50-foot and the 100-foot wetland buffer. We had previously proposed 3 birch trees along the property line to the northern property line, where we're taking 3 of the 4 trees. And we had a landscape area down by the water where we had some shrubbery to mitigate the other tree that we were taking along the southern property line. Since then, we've added 2 additional trees within the 50. Even though the trees we're taking down are outside of the 50, we've added 2 shad bush on the property on either side of the proposed house. And then we've added some button bush along the top of the bank for Hickory Hills Lake to provide some additional stabilization there and to complement the existing shade trees that are right along the water. So those were the vegetation changes. The only other thing that I added, which was a comment by, I believe, Mr. Viviano at the end of the meeting, was to define the existing travel lane that the applicants are using to access the dock. So previously, if the commission remembers, there's a sand beach area or sandbox area that we're proposing to replace with a fieldstone patio. And there's a carpet leading down the slope to the gangway that leads to the dock currently. To define that area and then restabilize around that, we have 2 stone steps that we intend to insert into the bank. So we're not going to be doing any filling, and that'll just define that walkway from where the patio is going down to that existing gangway, providing access to the dock. And then all the areas restored around that will no longer be the sandbox, will be restored with lumen seed or the landscaping that we're proposing on top of the bank. So those were the only changes for this one. If there's any questions on any of that or anything additional, I'm happy to address those now.
Thank you, Ryan. That's consistent with the notes that I had from the previous meeting. I will open it to fellow commissioners if they have questions or comments. I'm not seeing any. Do we have any questions or comments from members of the public? Okay, I think I'm looking for a motion from my commissioners if they're so inclined to approve this NOI.
So moved by
So
Joe.
moved. Second by Mike.
Okay, original movement by Jeff and a second by Mike LaRouche. So I'm going for a roll call vote. Rich Birch.
Aye.
Bob Pease.
Aye.
Chris St. Germain.
Aye.
Rich Tremblay.
Aye.
Jeff Viviano.
Aye.
Mike LaRouche.
Aye.
And I for myself. So that is to approve this NOI. Thank you, Ryan.
Yep,
And,
thank you everyone for your time. Appreciate it.
Good luck to the Charpentiers on this project.
Thank you.
Okay, now I have, oh yeah, okay, I know this one's still
69
here.
Brookview. There you go.
So I have 441 Townsend Harbor Road on there. And Bob has been kind of rigorously going through our previous hearing meetings. And I think the best thing for me to do is to read this one in, Bob, and then for us to determine what it is we want to do for actions in terms of keeping this on the agenda moving forward. Because I don't see anybody from this, nor have we in the previous two meetings, seen anybody representing this on the call. So that's what I'll do. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended in the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands Protection and Municipal Bylaws, a hearing on an amended order of conditions by Nicholas Eaton for repair and construction of an existing deck at 441 Townsend Harbor Road. And I don't see Nick on the call. Bob, you had pointed out that at the last hearing where we did have Nick Eaton present, he kind of said that he was not inclined to proceed with this project. Is that what you had understood from the?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what was my understanding. And it doesn't surprise me that he hasn't been here at the last two meetings, based on my past experiences with Nick. I'm proposing that we issue a positive determination since the current deck is over the lake. And so if he wants to change it, he should file an NOI. But that's either that or just close it out, or Rich may have a better idea, the proper thing to do here than I, and I would go along with anything that he had to say about the matter.
Rich, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, at this point, I would recommend that we give it a positive determination and just send him our findings with a recommendation. If he wishes to proceed, he needs to file an NOI.
Okay, I think I'm looking for a formal motion for a positive determination.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Rich Birch and a second by Bob Pease. We'll go for a roll call vote. Mike LaRouche,
Aye.
Jeff Viviano,
Aye.
Rich Tremblay,
Aye.
Chris St. Germain,
Aye.
Bob Pease,
Aye.
Rich Birch,
Aye.
and I for myself. So that handles that one. Now we'll move into the business section of our meeting tonight. And so I think in new business, we'll start out with a discussion of an earth removal permit review for 780 Northfield Road. Do we have Jim Latazzi still on the call? Yep, he is. Has the tenacity to hang out with us long tonight. So Jim, do you want to review this your permit proposal and help us understand what it is that you're doing and why?
Sure thing. So as you know, my wife Alice and I are the newer-ish, now two years owners of the Pierce's Christmas Tree Farm here in Lunenburg. What we're doing and what we have done is we have done a lot of work in the last 2 years at the tree farm. We've planted 13,000 new seedlings in the last 2 years, and we're continuing to plant at about double the rate that farm has ever been planted at. There's quite a bit of open ground that had not been replanted and some land that had been cleared by the former farmer to put into production for Christmas trees. In the meantime, we have grown other crops as well. We just grew about 10 acres of silage corn at the farm there, and we have put everything else into hay production. So the entirety of that property is about 77 acres of open tillable land, and we have all of it in current production at this point. The project that what I'm up against right now, what I've done is we worked this year with the Natural Resources Conservation Service. They're the folks that we work with as farmers to implement conservation programs, everything from irrigation to nutrient management, drainage systems, all sorts of things revolving around conservation of the farmland. And so in working with NRCS and when we were designing where we're putting this additional overhead irrigation that we put in, this year we installed another 10 acres of overhead. We didn't really need much for irrigation this year, but we've seen that previously we absolutely have needed irrigation and expect with the way that the climate is acting that we will need it in the future as well. But working with kind of some historic knowledge of the section where we installed that irrigation system, that knowledge coming from Mr. Pierce, it was explained to us that before we went and put this new irrigation system in, there was a specific a section of the farm there where it was kind of a high dry section. It turns out there was a lot of sand underneath it. And so his recommendation, and then again, I ran this through NRCS, was that before we installed this permanent irrigation system, it made the most sense to do a land leveling project. And so that's what we did. We did it back in the spring. What we did is we used heavy equipment. We removed the topsoil. We set it to the side. We excavated that sand. It's a coarse sand, very well drained. And so we re-leveled that section. We contoured it correctly. And we have since put all the topsoil right back. And then we've been working to, as we have with all the soils on that farm, to do a lot of soil improvement. We've imported, and you may have noticed when you were there last weekend,